landings. Any ideas about that?
Yes, there's in fact, I still have the old newspaper articles because the testing, supposedly for the astronauts, was done in Sudbury, not far from me.
Oh, really?
And because they had the mines there had destroyed so much of the greenery, all you were left with was rocks and ridges and no shrubs or grass or anything. So they used that to test, supposedly, these astronauts on beforehand. But at the time of the moon landing, on the BBC in Britain, they asked different people that they were well known if they believed that man actually had gone to the moon. I thought that was odd in itself.
Yeah.
And one of the men that came on was Chief Dan George, a Canadian Indian, who was an actor. And he said, and people laughed at him when he said it. He says, I was in a Hollywood studio doing a movie recently, and I walked over to a construction. He said, and what I saw inside it was exactly what I saw on the television off the surface of the moon.
There you go, yeah. And I mean, there is even, okay, that doesn't verify it in any way, but there even is a scene, I think, in one of the Bond movies where they actually are shooting, moon footage in some studio out there somewhere. And I mean, Ian Fleming is an interesting guy and so forth. So, I mean, who knows? A little tidbits here and there, as some kind of hint, to the initiate, something like that.
And then you have Arthur C. Clarke's movie 2001.
Yeah.
And 2001 was written in the early 60s.
Yeah.
He was a high Freemason, predicting the future in occultic terms, and the New World Order was to kick off in 2001. That's why it was called 2001.
Yeah.
And 9/11 happened in 2001. But in the movie they made about it, back then, they showed the same kind of thing on the moon, and it was fantastic computerization. Simulation they used for its day. It was just as good as the NASA shots. And now they've they admitted a few years after it that some of the people who were in, I think, the big studios, ABC or NBC at the time, had sets there, because I noticed too, when they separated the landing craft from the main craft on the moon, to go down, it seemed like the camera was following them from the back.
Yeah.
And I said, well, who's flying some second vehicle to follow them in?
Yeah.
These were all simulated, and yet it wasn't disclosed as simulated at the time.
Interesting.
But it looked perfectly real to the average person back then.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. If we were to be more, let's say that they shoot up a rocket, let's say, from Canaveral or whatever. Any ideas, if they actually don't, travel outside the atmosphere, if that is even possible? I mean, there is this talk, of course, about the Van Allen belt, and that the radiation actually is so high up there that you actually can't go out beyond a certain point and so forth. But let's say that they shoot up a rocket like this. Do you have any ideas on how they're able to kind of mask it? Do they actually destroy it? Is it empty? Any ideas?
They'd have to have some advanced knowledge, which is just the knowledge that we would not be allowed access to, of some force or energy that could literally shield them going through the Van Allen belt, because NASA it's still in the books, official physics books, that you can't travel through it. It would kill you. Even if you had the regular sort of lead or whatever type of shielding, it's just too strong. And I've never ever answered that question. How they managed to do it?
Yeah,
they did it at all.
Isn't the moon within the Van Allen belt, or is it outside? Do you know?
It's outside.
It is outside. Okay.
But it's on the way to it, and you can go up to the space station, for instance, and you're still fairly safe there.
Sure.
Still get more radiation.
Yeah.
But once you get into the belt, technically nothing would live coming through it.
Very interesting. Yeah, that seems to be, and a lot of course, again, research on the space suits and stuff like this have been going on. That would never, be able to handle all the radiation basically that is up there. But no idea. It's a big, a big question that keeps on coming up again and again, man. But let's talk a little bit more about the UFO enigma, because again, you yourself connected this very very nicely, with the Area 51 and all that, and that many of this actually is then human craft that is, actually flying around up there, and that people see and report on and stuff like this. Is it possible that there is anything more going on there that beyond only human technology? Do you think?
I think it's just human what we see.
Mm.
Especially when you do have a memory and you can get old data disclosed at the time, before they started the whole alien stuff, and saw what they were testing and using. I mean, south of me towards Mansfield, one of the big companies in Canada here that made the Avro Arrow had also made a flying saucer, and the CBC showed it on television not so long ago. They re-showed this old clip from the 60s where you saw this thing, a flying saucer with a little bubble on it and a man inside it, flying through the sky, but it crashed outside Mansfield, and the furrow in the field that it plowed up is still there. So they were testing all kinds of these crafts back then.
Yeah. Interesting.
And remember, too, during a Cold War, as they called it, nothing of real truth was ever disclosed to the public because you were supposed to be at war, and it was a war of science. So all the high scientific gadgetry was classed top secret.
Oh my, yeah.
See, the public now have been trained that for some reason we're always told the truth.
Yeah.
That's a new phenomena. Believe that.
Yeah. Exactly. And there even, we could backtrack and even, look at all the, if we were to talk about the news itself, I mean, that there is tremendous amount of budget for what is called as, false news, that the Pentagon is releasing false news up there. So, I mean, it's all of this, I mean, even if it's from, unofficial or official sources, whatever, all of it all the time has to be, questioned and looked at, and for what it's worth. I mean, if nothing else, it could obviously be interesting to look at stuff to try to, pick up on what they are trying to get through to the populace, so to speak, even if the events themselves aren't real or not. For instance, just a few days ago, a news item was released through Reuters, I think, that was called "How to Prepare for an Alien Invasion," and these are, space agency guys, Defense Department within NASA and so forth, the U.S. Space Agency, speculating on possible invasions, basically from another world. So this is now, in a way becoming more and more in the collective mind, as it were, of many people now.
Yeah, it took literally almost 60 years to build up through fiction and movies, a very entertaining fiction.
Sure.
The possibility of aliens even existing. If they tried that prior to 1945, we would laugh at them. But since then they've churned out so many books for the young. I liked them too, and movies to make us think of, well, it's possible. Yeah. But it's all done through fiction. It's all fictional work. Yeah.
You have no question about that there isn't aliens out there, eh?
If there are, put it this way, they don't seem to have any. Number one, if there were aliens out there and they knew what was happening in this world, that they're not friendly to the vast majority of the populace, or they would be telling us what's happening with the big boys.
Yeah, sure.
And it doesn't happen. And number two, there's no record of them ever intervening on our behalf anywhere. It's as though we're on our own here to make our own choices.
Yeah, indeed.
Now, I don't say that there's not the possibility that something else exists. I'm not saying that it's very possible.
Yeah, sure.
But I don't see that anything's actually intervening on our behalf here.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree on that too. I mean, in a way, and who knows? There might be some, who knows? There might be tremendous differences in species across on different planets and so forth that actually might have developed into cultures that have very different, views actually on how to go about, potential contact or whatever. Who knows? The possibilities out there.
There's no reason it would have any empathy for humankind anyway.
Sure, exactly, precisely. I mean, who the heck knows? And I mean, as it were, then these guys are sitting there now paranoid, as it were, trying to draw out the possibility of there being potential dangerous threats from outside, coming here, taking over the planet or whatever. I mean, these
plans were thought out and talked about by John Dewey. He was the first one. He was the so-called father of modern education for the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
And back in the early 1900s, he said, if only we could have a threat from outer space, the whole world would have to come together and be one in a new living system to fight it.
Yep.
And that's been repeated by different presidents, even down to Ronald Reagan, who used it many times in speeches.
That's right, yeah.
We also saw the movie called, it was with Michael Rennie, where they came down as flying saucer lands on the White House lawn.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And he comes out with a proposition to unite the Earth. It's just too primitive and too warlike to manage themselves.
Sure.
That was the day the Earth stood still.
Yeah, exactly.
And of course the whole idea was exactly what the elite wrote about long before. The new system would be run by scientists who were the only intellectuals qualified to run the system.
Yeah.
And that's who Michael Rennie as the alien sought out in the movie. So these are all predictive programming movies.
Yeah.
To get us used to the idea. Now the problem is too, you can make anything a fad or a belief. Anything at all can be made a belief if enough effort and money and propaganda goes into the promulgation of it.
Yeah, sure.
And I always quote Bertrand Russell, who said that there's no nonsense so arrant that it cannot be made the creed, the belief of the vast majority by adequate government action.
There you go.
You believe anything.
Yeah.
Today we have such incredible science. We know that stuff exists to do with mind control, where they can project thoughts or images into your mind.
Yeah.
That was shown by Nick Bagage on television here in Canada with obsolete equipment that somehow he got from the CIA.
Huh.
The equipment was from the 1950s. And it could put thoughts or a voice right into your head at line of sight over any distance. And you could carry them in your pocket like a little television remote. And he said all of this stuff is obsolete. It was used by the CIA in the 1950s.
Yeah.
Now, by the same technology, they can give you a picture in your mind. So you could be brought in for testing or apparent testing, and you would think you're being abducted by aliens.
Yeah, exactly.
And they could put into your mind that you're actually seeing aliens and not men in white lab coats.
Yeah, exactly.
So we can't trust even what we see anymore.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Absolutely right. And that is a fascinating aspect to, of course, all of this, because that is a huge possibility that seems to, connect with, the entire, UFO field, as it were. Many people reports on their abductions, but exactly, it always seems to be also in a very dream kind of state, basically, where they are either, disabled somehow, or it's very fuzzy or blurry in a way, and they actually have to go back later and do what is known as regression, and that's another field that might potentially bring in influence and stuff like this. So it's a very difficult area here.
They did testing in scientific studies in the U.S. some years ago on this, and they got a two study groups. One group were picked out of general population who had no memory of any abduction, and another group that claimed they'd been abducted. And they found out that even in the non-abducted group, under hypnosis, they were coming out with the same stories. And the reason they came up with was that everyone had been so polluted with stories in the newspapers about it. It was in the subconscious, the whole idea of abduction and what had happened to people, that their subconscious was remembering what they'd read.
Do you think that people who perform the regressions also might actually be because of, whatever,